Morning, y'all. Here today at Peckerwood Lake in Central Arkansas. I'll let y'all have fun with that one in the comments, but it's a pretty new lake to me. I've only been here one time, and it was at a different time of year, so it should be pretty interesting today. And I actually got a suggestion on my Gmail account the other day to make a video on how I break down a brand new lake. And I fished this lake one time before. It was on a completely different end of the lake, a different time of year. So hopefully today I can show you how I break down new water that I've never been to before. And if you've seen my live streams before, you'll have seen me break down subscribers' lakes using Navionics and Google Earth, but I'm not on a lake for those videos, and it's kind of hard to explain how I take that information that I share about spots on Google Earth and Navionics and actually apply it to a lake. And so today, I'm going to show you the process of how I take my map study at home and apply it on a new body of water to find new fish. So let's get after it. And I can't think of any better place to start than this little clump of reeds here with this duck blind. So when I'm thinking about fishing a brand new lake, the first thing I do is start with some map study at home. And before I came out on Peckerwood today, I picked out 10 or 15 good looking spots on Google Earth, and I'll get into what these spots were and how to find them in a second here. And then after I pick out those spots, I try to cover as much water in the first couple hours of the day as possible. So I'm gonna be picking up a spinnerbait and a crankbait and fishing pretty quick down some of this shallow grass and some of these bushes. And really my goal is to fish as many spots as possible in the first 2 hours to really develop a pattern. And hopefully in that 2 hours I catch a couple fish. And so I'll try to hit maybe 5 to 7 spots in those 2 hours just to try to cover water and figure out what the fish are doing. Ooh. Up your fish. Oh yes! Woo! Dude, look at that thing. Yes! Woo! Man, look at that. Flipping these reeds kind of like I just started the day on, guys, and was throwing a spinnerbait down there actually in these reeds, and this guy came up and swirled on it, so I pitched that tube back in there and followed it up and caught that really nice fish. That's probably a 3 3/4 pounder, 3.5 pounder. That's awesome, dude. Whew, man, I got that fish right out of this patch of reeds right here. I'm on kind of a point of grass here, and the water temps are 58 degrees, guys. As you can see, that fish is full of eggs right there. It's a female, and so they're getting up ready to spawn. So I'm gonna throw this guy in the live well just for a few minutes, and then I'll release it before I leave this area so I'm not messing up the spawn. But if I catch another one here, I want to get a picture with 2 fish. So let me throw them live real quick. Oh dude, that was awesome. Again, I was fishing that spinnerbait in this clump of reeds right here, and he swirled on it and missed it. So I pitched that black neon tube with a 1/4 ounce weight in there, and he grabbed it. So awesome first fish. Let's see if there's another one in this clump of reeds here. Oh, got another one. Yes! Woo! Yes! Oh man, it's like 2 pitches later, guys. Right after I caught that fish, I might have found a little group of them in this patch of grass. I'm gonna have to get out of this grass here before I float up on it. That's a 2.5, 2 3/4 pounder. I'm gonna throw him in the live well again real quick, dude. This is awesome! Woo! Holy crap, this is crazy, guys. That's 2 fish in literally this little tiny patch of grass, and that was like 3 pitches apart. So I may have found a little group of them stacked up on this point. And a lot of times when you're fishing lakes that have a ton of cover in them, like Peckerwood, where you just have grass all over, as you can see, it all looks pretty much the same. When you catch one fish, you're normally gonna find a bunch of fish grouped up in a little area. So I'm gonna really pick this patch of grass apart. I'll probably come fish it again later in the day, but I think I found my pattern for the day. Woo! Wow, guys, that was awesome. This is actually one of the first spots I started on, and it was one of the spots that looked the best when I was doing my map study on Google Earth before I came out here. And before I get into what kind of spots I was looking at on Google Earth, I want to show you guys how I got this aerial footage of Peckerwood Lake drawn down. And so first what you have to do is download Google Earth on your PC or your laptop or computer. The Google Earth version on iPhone doesn't have the feature to roll back time and look at historical footage. And so first download the desktop version of Google Earth. And then once you open up Google Earth and head to your lake, you're going to want to go to the menu bar on the top of your screen and click on the icon that looks like a clock with an arrow pointing to the left. And once you click on this button, you're going to get a pop-up menu, and this menu has all of the historical images that have been saved in Google Earth for this lake. And so you can click through these and you can find times when the lake has been drawn down or has been flooded. And this can be really useful when you're trying to do some map study at home. So if we take a look at this spot where I just caught those fish, you can see I found an image where the lake was drawn down on Peckerwood, and you can clearly see a creek channel that runs right across the mouth of this pocket. And if we zoom in here, you can actually see that there's 2 points that are really close to this creek channel, and this point right here is actually where I caught those fish. And if we bring the lake back up, you can see that there's some nice grass clumps off these points, and this is right where I caught that fish. And this is a great looking pre-spawn or early spawn spot because these fish have access to deep water with that creek channel and the shallow water up in that grass. And so when I'm looking for areas on a new lake or areas on lakes that have a ton of cover in them and it's kind of hard to decide where to start fishing, I'll normally look for these creek channel swings where the creek channel runs right up against the bank, and those are always going to be high percentage spots. And another thing to mention is that there's been a lot of rain in central Arkansas over the last few weeks, and this has raised the lake levels on all the lakes in this area, and Peckerwood was 5 to 6 feet high just a couple weeks ago, and this pushed a lot of fish up into the flooded bushes and the flooded grass where you can hardly get a bait, and it also spread the fish out a lot. But the water's actually starting to fall back down now, and it's probably only about 2 or 3 feet high, and so a lot of the fish are still way back in the grass and they're kind of hard to get to, but there's some fish that are actually pulling out onto the outside edge of this grass where I can actually put a bait in front of them, and that's where I caught those fish. Okay, so I need to take a deep breath here and regain my composure. Sorry I'm getting so excited, guys. I haven't fished in like 2 months, and so it's pretty awesome to come out here and catch a 4-pounder and a 2.5 pounder back to back on a new lake pretty much, and so it just gets me jacked up. But let me explain what I was doing real quick. So, whoa, boat's going all over the place, but all I was doing was working this spinner bait on the outside edge of this grass. And as you can see, we have some overcast conditions, and you can also see that there's just a ton of cover behind me. There's shallow grass, there's bushes, all kinds of stuff for these fish to get in. And so since this is a new lake and I don't really know where these fish set up, it's really intimidating to figure out where to start fishing since everything looks awesome. And so normally when I get in a situation like this, I like to pick up a moving bait like a spinner bait, a chatter bait, or a crank bait, and I'll just kind of work the bait on the outside edge of the cover and maybe up in the cover as well. And especially when the fish are in this pre-spawn mode, they're going to want to get up to the bank and start spawning. And a lot of times you can work this spinner bait around the shallow grass and get the fish to kind of come up on the bait like that last fish did, or you might even catch one. And then normally when you find a fish in this, thick grass or in a row of bushes, normally there's going to be more with them. Fish like to kind of group up this time of year on little stretches of the bank. And so what I'm going to do basically all day is just keep covering water with the spinner bait till I catch a fish, and then I'll slow down with that tube and try to pick a couple fish out of the area. So it's working out so far. Let's see if it keeps going. Okay guys, so up until this point I was having a great day on Lake Peckerwood, but about an hour after I caught those 2 fish, my trolling motor battery completely died and I couldn't use the trolling motor the rest of the day. And because of this, I kind of had to resort to letting the wind float me down some grassy banks or kind of ride the wind out in front of some flats. And I tried to do this for about 3 or 4 hours but never got any more bites. And so instead of just ending the video here, what I wanted to do was show you at least some of the spots that I tried so you can get an idea of what I was looking at on Google Earth before coming to the lake, and kind of maybe show you some stuff that didn't work, so maybe next time you go on the water you can know what not to do. But either way, here you go. So here's another really good looking spot I found during my map study, and all it is a pocket with a creek channel running into it. And there's actually a secondary creek channel that cuts off right here, and it comes into this little creek, and this is one of the few places I could actually get to the bank on Peckerwood today because the lake was so flooded. And I really like to find areas where I can get to the bank during the spawn because it really limits the area that those fish can get in. But unfortunately I didn't get any bites there, and so I moved on and I started started fishing down some of the shallow grass that was right next to that creek channel and didn't get any bites. And then I decided to actually go a little bit deeper into that grass as well. So I tied on an 1.25 ounce weight and started pitching way back in those reeds. And the reeds still had 2 to 3 feet of water in them. And so I think there was some fish in them. And I really think there were some fish even further back where I couldn't get my bait. But that didn't work. And so finally I decided to move out to some isolated bushes in the mouth of this pocket that again were close to that creek channel, and they were in 2 to 3 feet of water, and they looked really good. But I just think that those fish were a little bit shallower than I could actually get my boat, and so unfortunately I didn't get any fish in this spot, but it still looked really good. After leaving that spot, I decided to fish a little bit more offshore to see if there were still some fish that were in that pre-spawn mode a little bit deeper. And so I decided to fish this creek channel that kind of formed a ditch that ran through this flat. And there were some lily pad stems in that ditch in 3 to 4 feet of water, and I threw a crankbait through there and a chatterbait trying to find some pre-spawn females that hadn't moved up to spawn yet. But unfortunately I didn't get any bites in this ditch, but it still looks really good, and it looks like a really good spot that the fish would use in the pre-spawn. After leaving that ditch, I decided to try a main lake bank with a creek channel swinging right up against it, and again, this looks like a great pre-spawn spot. And I tried to fish a spinnerbait and a crankbait down some of the trees that were in 5 to 7 feet of water down this bank, and I also fished a little bit shallower, but again, I really couldn't get to the bank to fish in that super shallow water where I think those fish were spawning. And then in my last ditch effort to find some pre-spawn bass, I decided to fish this lily pad field. And most of the lily pads had died, but there were lily pad stems down there, and a lot of fish like to spawn or stage in these lily pad stems. And as you can see, there's a nice creek channel that winds through this flat, and so because I didn't have a trolling motor, I kind of just put my boat in the center of that lily pad field and let the wind take me through it. And I actually got a pretty good bite on a spinnerbait in this lily pad field, but just didn't commit to it. And I think a lot of these fish had already moved up to the bank and were either spawning or getting ready to spawn, because water temperatures were between 58 and 62 degrees when I was out there. So finally, after fishing down a lot more banks that looked just like the spot where I caught those 2 good fish this morning, and also fishing some of that offshore pre-spawn stuff, I decided to try to get as shallow and as deep into the cover as I could. And with the sun coming out and the water warming up, I was pretty sure the fish were moving up shallow and they were trying to start to spawn. But unfortunately, I really couldn't get back as deep as I wanted into the cover because I didn't have my trolling motor and the lake was about 3 feet high. And so I think those fish were probably spawning up in the 6 inches to 2 feet of water range. But with all of that cover in the way, I could never get back that shallow. And one thing I did try was fishing around some of these islands, and I managed to get pretty shallow on some of them, but the fish just weren't pulled up on those. So it was a pretty bad finish after catching those 2 good fish first thing in the morning, but that's just how fishing is sometimes, and you're not always going to catch fish every time you get on the water. And I just kind of want to show you guys my thought process of how I went through my day after getting those 2 bites, and maybe you can learn from what I did, even if it's what not to do.
Okay guys, so if your lake has a lot of shallow hay grass or bank grass like peckerwood does, I'm going to show you guys a couple baits I like to throw in this situation in the pre-spawn and right before those fish actually get up on their beds. So first up is this 1/2 ounce Strike King Hack Attack heavy cover spinnerbait, and this is a awesome bait for fishing in grass because it has a really good head shape that kind of plows through the grass and doesn't get hung up at all. And I also like in this dirty water to have that chartreuse color with that gold willow leaf blade. So this is always my go-to bait when I'm fishing shallow grass in the springtime right before the fish move up on the beds. And I'll also fish this through like lily pad stems and around cypress trees too. And so for my setup on this, I was just throwing a 7'3" medium heavy action bait casting rod with a 6:3-to-1 gear ratio bait casting reel and 15-pound fluorocarbon line. And then as far as my other moving baits go, when I'm fishing in this hay grass, if the grass is a little bit more sparse and not too thick, then I like to throw a Strike King Pure Poison or a little chatterbait. And I like this bait when I'm not too worried about getting my bait hung up in the grass. And so this is a really good bait when you're casting on the outside edge of the grass or wanting to fish just a little bit slower than you would with that spinner bait. So I'll throw this normally in a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce size with a little swim bait on the back. And for my rod and reel, I just throw a 610 medium heavy action spinnerbait rod with 15-pound fluorocarbon line, 6:3-to-1 gear ratio reel again. And then last up is a swim jig, and I'll fish this when the grass is really thick and I can't get that spinnerbait or the chatterbait through there. And this is just a Strike King Hack Attack heavy cover swim jig, and I'll put a little swim bait on the back as well. Just I throw it in all white, and I like that 1/2 ounce or even going up to a 3/4 ounce swim jig just to keep that bait down in the grass and in the water. A lot of times that grass is pretty thick and it's hard to get it down in there. And I'll just throw this on a 7-foot medium heavy action bait casting rod, or all the way up to a 7'6" heavy action. And I'll throw it on 65-pound braided line with a 7-to-1 gear ratio bait casting reel. And then if I want to slow down, I have 3 soft plastics I really like to throw in this grass in the spring. And my first one is my go-to spring bait when the water's dirty, and that's a black neon 4.5-inch flipping tube. And this bait is amazing when the water's dirty and the fish are getting ready to spawn. And I'll put a little bead or a little rattle in there to give it a little bit of extra sound, and I just throw it on a 1/4 ounce tungsten weight, and I peg that with a little bobber stop, and then I'll throw a 5/0 Gamakatsu EWG hook on that. And I'll normally rig that on a 7'6" heavy action bait casting rod with a 6:3-to-1 gear ratio reel and 20-pound fluorocarbon line. And then if that grass is a little bit too thick for me to get in there with a 1/4 ounce weight on that tube, I'll normally switch it up and go to a punch rig with a tungsten weight that's 1 ounce or 1 1/4 ounces, and I'll rig that with a Strike King rodent, and if it's dirty, I'll just throw it in the black neon color still, and I'll throw it with a 4/0 straight shank Strike King Hack Attack heavy cover flipping hook. And that's a great hook for flipping, especially when you're using a big setup like this, which is a 711 Hack Attack Quantum Signature Series rod, and it's a heavy action rod. And I'll throw that with 65-pound braided line, and again a 7-to-1 gear ratio bait casting reel. And then if none of those other baits are working, my last resort is going to be a Gary Yamamoto Senko. And this bait normally gets bit when nothing else will. And I'll just throw this bait on a 3/0 offset worm hook, and I'll throw it in the black and blue gold flake color. That's my favorite color. And normally I'll throw this on a 7'2" medium heavy action bait casting rod with 15-pound fluorocarbon line and a 6:3-to-1 gear ratio reel. So those are all the baits and all the equipment I use to throw them on when I'm fishing shallow grass in the springtime. Well guys, I'm gonna call it a day, but before I do, I just wanna show you that I'm gonna release these 2 beautiful bass right back where they were spawning over by that grass. And so you can see they're both beautiful pre-spawn bass, and you know, really good quality bass. I'm just really surprised I didn't get on any more. I still fished quite a bit of water even though I didn't have my trolling motor, and so I don't want to blame it on the trolling motor that I didn't find fish. I just didn't get around them. But as you can tell, there are definitely fish up shallow, and I think that if I just kept covering water today, I probably would run into another couple groups of them. So you know, that's fishing though. You don't always have the best days, but I mean, you can't complain when you have 2 beautiful 3.5-pound bass like this. So I'm gonna let them go real quick. But man, that is just 2 beauties right there. Can't complain at all when you're catching fish like that. So let's let them go real quick. There they go, and they're gonna go straight back into this grass, and they're gonna keep spawning. So awesome. Well, that's pretty much it. Really didn't get the fish in the boat I wanted to today. Normally I like to get 3 or 4 fish catches just to show you guys that I'm not just getting lucky out here, and who knows, I may have just got lucky today. But either way, hope you learned something about how to fish the shallow grass and the pre-spawn, and maybe about some baits you can throw in there. So hopefully it was helpful, even if I didn't have that many fish catches in it. And if you thought it was, leave a comment down below and let me know if this type of video is okay. So thanks again for watching, and if you enjoyed, hit like and subscribe down below, and also share the video with a friend if you think they'll like it too. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hey guys, so before I let you go, I want to let you know the results of my 5,000 subscriber giveaway I announced last week. And I just announced that on my live stream so that only my most loyal followers would see the post. And I said anyone who commented on that video would get a chance to either win a brand new Smoke Series 3 Quantum fishing rod or a package of fishing lures valued at $50. And so what I did is I just took all those comments and I put them into a random comment picker that I found online. And so here are the results. So first up, I'm gonna announce the 5 winners of the $50 packages of fishing lures. And the 5 winners are Christian Mills, Therminator Fishing, Ian McDonald, Go Get a Bassin, and Devin S. Vids. And all these guys left great comments, and I really appreciate it. And the way I'm actually going to send these lures to you is I'm going to comment on your comment
in that live stream video. And I'm gonna give you a week to send me an email at fishthemoment1@gmail.com, and I'll leave that in the comment. And if you send me an address where I can ship these packages to, I'll send them out right away. And if those people don't get back to me in a week, then I'm gonna pick another winner. So I'm going to send out 5 of these packages, and I have an alternate list of people who won as well. So make sure you get that email sent to me by next Friday or next Saturday, I guess, and you'll be good to go. Next up, we have the winner of the brand new Smoke Series 3 7'2" medium heavy action bait casting rod. And this isn't the rod that I'm gonna be giving away. I actually have a brand new one in the package still that I'm gonna be sending. And the winner of that fishing pole is Jeff Goodson. And Jeff left an awesome comment. Thank you so much, man, for the support. And again, I'm gonna leave a comment on your comment in that video, and just send me an email at fishthemoment1@gmail.com with an address where I can ship the rod to, and I'll get that out to you as soon as I can. So congratulations again, and again, thank you so much, guys, for all the support to get me to 5,000 subscribers. It means a lot to me, and thanks for all the kind words in the comments.